Alright, hello YouTube. Today we are going to do the thing that everyone seems to do, but I try to not do because I feel like it's still too early for a tier list. And all my experience is mainly based on beta test experience. I'll take into account the buffs and nerfs that has happened when the game officially released, which is, well, a few days ago. However, I do not currently have all of these characters leveled up yet. I'm just looking based on their current numbers in their stat sheets. Alright, let's begin. Okay, so we are going to do this based on class types, okay? So, let's start with abundance. So, as everyone know, I would put this here, and I will put this here. And everyone is probably raging outside their minds right now because they look at other tier lists and they saw Bailu at S tier, and I'm gonna fucking tell you this. A lot of people have been stuck at World Level 2 because the boss applies 10 bleed stack on you. World level 3, they apply wind shear stack on you. World level 5, they apply shock status on you. And world level 6, trust me, it gets worse. You need to have a fucking cleanse. You cannot play this game without a cleanse. I'm not even fucking kidding. Like at level 70 and up, every enemy will apply so much debuff on you, you'll just die. For Bailu, if you die and revive, all the debuff is gone. Well, if you play Natasha, you can prevent your team from dying in the first place. There's one advantage that Bailu has over Natasha though, which is she does apply much more healing than Natasha. I would say almost double Natasha healing, realistically. However, she does overheal. There's only 2 healers in this game anyways right now, for now at least. In later content in the game, you have to build 2 teams anyway because you have to fight the first half and the second half of the Hall of Trials. So yeah, you're gonna need both healers. Just because I put Natasha S and Bailu A, that doesn't mean Bailu is just weaker than Natasha. Destruction is the warrior type in video games. They're not really a tank, but they're not really a full DPS either. They're kind of like half and half. Clara is a character that is technically the highest AoE damage dealer in the game. And she also does respectable single target damage on her own as well. However, the reason why she's the strongest AoE damage dealer in the game is if you're fighting 3 enemy, assuming she gets hit 2 times out of 3, she will out-damage most AoE character in this game. Because her damage doesn't require a skill point. The basics of this game is skill point economy. You spend skill point to use your skill, you use your normal attack to recover skill point. Clara essentially doesn't have to spend any skill point to do big fucking damage. And that's why she is strong. So the build that people do on Clara is literally full crit, full attack, full damage. Because she has so much damage resistance already, she's basically never dying. It's so weird that they make a character this much of a stat stick, because if you've ever played a turn-based game before, being able to function outside of your turn is the most valuable thing ever. Next, we have the Trailblazer. He does decent damage, some single target, some AoE. Alright, next for Arlen. Arlen is an unfortunate character, because Arlen was way too strong during the beta test. Arlen's main mechanic is that he uses his own HP to do damage, which means he never uses any skill point. He's very skill point efficient. His damage number was also much higher during the earlier versions of the game. However, that's why he got nerfed. I would say his damage is still good. It's just not as good as it was before. And now we have Hook. Hook is the reverse of Arlen. Because no one used Hook during the beta test, the fucking developer basically doubled her damage. Hook is basically an almost non-conditional damage dealer. She is very consistent and very reliable. That is Destruction. The next we have Erudition. Oh, this guy isn't out yet, but I'm just gonna put him there. This is Tingyun using his ability. And this is his passive. This is his fucking passive. My concern is that they might actually nerf him. He is an AoE damage dealer who excels in fighting multiple enemies at a time. However, his damage is so high, he is the 4th ranking single target damage dealer, even though he was meant to be used in AoE scenario. Next, we have Himeko. Okay, I'm gonna say this. Bro, I don't think they buff Himeko enough. She's still good, but Jingyuan exists. Himeko has a chance to apply burn on enemy, but it's only 50-50. It's not guaranteed, and that burn never scales. Hook has a 100% chance to apply burn, and that burn scales with talent level, so it slowly gets higher. From my experience at least, I feel like these three characters are roughly the same damage level. The only difference is that Servo might be A tier whenever Kafka gets released. Chingshu is a good character if you're always lucky, or if you have a lot of energy recharge, you can do quite a bit of damage with her, but her kit is very RNG. Servo, her damage numbers are lacking. Her kit is good, but her damage numbers aren't like comparative to the A and S tier. That doesn't mean she's bad. In my opinion, she does more reliable damage than Herta, because Herta damage only trigger if the enemy is below half health. Servo applies AoE damage and damage over time. My only disadvantage about Servo that I'll tell people is a Servo scales really well with extra copies. Her first copy makes her auto attack hit 2 enemies instead of 1. Number 2 is just giving her extra energy, but number 4 is important. Normally, her Servo will use her E to apply shock debuff and use her ult to extend the shock debuff. However, Servo E4 allows her ult itself to apply the shock debuff, and that is a very huge change. Next, we have the Harmony. Oh boy. This isn't wrong. This literally isn't wrong. Like, none of them are bad. They're all fucking good. Rank them at least. Okay, in my opinion, it's more like this. Esther is a really good shield breaker if enemy is weak to fire because she attacks 5 times. Esther will 2-shot the boss shield, which makes her invaluable, and because world level 6 is the final world in simulation, she is going to be good for a long time. For every enemy that Esther hits, she gives the team an attack buff, okay? So if you're fighting one enemy, you only get 1 stack of the attack buff. If you're fighting multiple enemies, then you get multiple stacks, right? Bronia is very hot, yeah, I love her design a lot. However, gameplay-wise, in my opinion, Bronia is very skill point intensive to play. Unless you have extra copy of her, of course. It's kind of unreliant, right? So when Bronia uses her E, she dispels a debuff from an ally, so essentially a cleanse. She gives them an extra turn and increase their damage for 1 turn. And her ultimate ability is increase attack of all ally and give them crit damage equal to Bronia's crit damage. However, to generate your ult consistently, you need to spam your skill. On average, if you have the base energy regeneration rate 100%, most character takes 3 to 4 action to get their ult back. In my opinion, once you get to gear Bronia with good energy regeneration item, then Bronia will consistently and more reliably get her ult back in only 2 turns. Now, the reason why I prefer Tingyun over Bronia is quite simple. Tingyun only uses 1 skill point every 3 turns. Her buff gives allies an attack buff, and also make them do another line of damage. And her talent. If there is an ally that is buffed by Tingyun, Tingyun herself is also buffed and she'll do more damage based on that ally's attack as well. So when you buff an ally with Tingyun, both herself and that ally gets buffed. And since Tingyun only buffs once every 3 turns, her other 2 turns she'll be attacking. Tingyun's ultimate regenerates 50 energy and buff a target's damage. The reason why this is OP, because after your healer use their ult and you're like, I may take a lot of damage next turn, you just reset your healer ult. They may not use the damage buff, but you have another big heal, right? So for Tingyun, you want to run light cones that give you energy back a lot. So I run this, Memories of the Past. It gives me 8 light cone every time I hit, and it also gives me extra break effect. Next role, we have the Hunt. Stat-wise, it's going to be like this. Because these 3 damage are close, and silly damage is somewhere out of the fucking planet. Hunt characters are the strongest single target damage type in the game, but they all have a condition. For Dan Heng to do maximum damage, he has to have these 2 scenarios met. Whenever Dan Heng gets a buff, he ignores a portion of the enemy wound resistance, and when the enemy is slowed, he does more damage. However, it's kind of hard to get those 2 conditions together unless you're running something like Dan Heng Wealth and Fire main character, so you always have those conditions met. For Su Shang, whenever she attacks, there's a 33% chance that she'll land another attack. When she ults, she does a big damage, she summons a giant fucking cock that attacks, and it gives her an extra turn. And then your passive will now trigger 3 times. However, if you read this line down here, if the enemy is weakness broken, Sword Stance is guaranteed to trigger. So that's her requirement. And for Yan King, when he uses his skill, he gets Soul Steal, which gives him extra crit rate, crit damage, and a 50-50 chance to do a follow-up attack. This attack can hit multiple times. However, to maintain Soul Steal, he must never take damage. So, in my opinion, if you want to play Yan King, you kinda need to play Fire main character. And lastly, the fucking reason why that Sealy is the strongest single target damage dealer in the game, she is not conditional compared to the other characters. That's why Sealy is S tier. I don't think they're gonna power creep Sealy anytime soon. Her utility of the extra turn is very good, and I think she'll maintain and be the strongest single target damage dealer for a long time. Next, we have Nihility. Bro, I swear to God, none of them are fucking bad. Okay, I'll tell you why Wealth is good. Wealth slows enemy and reduce their action speed. However, the reason why Wealth isn't very high on a lot of people's list right now is because it's kind of hard to make use of him early game. For some freaking reason, all of the debuff character has good damage. I don't know why, but all of the debuff character has good damage ratios. Hela, her basic ability is that her skill remove a buff from an enemy, and her ultimate reduce the enemy defense. Her technique reduce the enemy defense. What is the strongest Nihility artifact? This one. This also reduce the enemy defense. So Hela can reduce enemy defense by 50% to 80% depending on how high your talent level is. Basically doubling your team damage. And Sampo, his job is to break enemy's shield if they are weak to wind, and he does damage over time with poison stack. And his ult amplify the amount of poison damage you do. And after you use your skill done, if enemy has 5 poison stack already, you only have to basic attack to maintain the poison stack forever, so he is very skill point efficient. I might put him on A tier instead of S tier, just because there are one enemy that is immune to poison. Next, we have
Preservation.
Firstly, Japard has the same problem with Shampoo. Every single boss enemy above level 50 is resistant to freeze. The Fire main character is a spear-based main character. You unlock the Fire main character by completing the level 25 main story quest. The main character talent is that whenever you take a turn, unless you're stunned, you will give your entire team a shield scaling off your defense. This is a very tiny shield until you can gear the main character up consistently. The main character playstyle is quite simple. You spam basic attack to generate energy, and you only hit taunt when it's really needed. And for March will counter-attack an enemy if an ally is attacked when they have a shield. This is any shield. This is all shield, not only her shield. So if you run like Main Traveler and March, she will counter every single hit. The reason why I would put March S tier is quite simple. A cleanse is just too good. That's the tier list done for every single role, is it not? Man, I'll see how well this fucking ages, you know? Once people reach like level 80, maybe some characters will be stronger. My guess is Arlen is gonna be stronger when everyone is max and have artifact. What about team composition? Oh, didn't I already talk about team composition before? Okay, you know what? Okay, so we'll just do a quick talk about team composition, okay? So the team you want to run generally is 2 DPS, a support, and a healer. And you can consider Nihility either as a support or as a damage dealer. They're both the same. And that is it for this little tier list video, alright?